But officially, Joel and his wife, Michelle, who are both amazing teachers, they founded Wisdom at Work. And this is a organization that's pioneering and going into organizations all over the globe to bring mindfulness and the contemplative sciences and change resilience and the idea of collective wisdom into organizations. Some of the places they've gone are NASA, MIT, World Government Summit, World Bank, Boeing, British Parliament, US Special Forces, the Surgeon General's office. I mean, they've all over the globe, they are invited to very special events that with thought leaders that are looking at leading edge ways to bring what they offer in more into organizations. They also are co-chairs for the Art Monastery Project and an international campaign for compassionate cities. So they're very active in world change as well as organizational change. And one of my favorite quotes from them, I'm just going to share this with you because it really tells you a lot about who they are, is from the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama actually has been an advisor and supporter of Joel and Michelle for decades and an advisor on many of their projects. And he says of them, you are personally engaged in work that has great prospects for bringing the Dharma to a very wide selection of people who under ordinary circumstances would not come into contact with these teachings. I am very pleased about your work that you are doing and sending you blessings and prayers for success. So, you know, that was from the Dalai Lama, and today we get to share a very special morning with Joel. This isn't Joel's canned thing that he does. Joel created this morning for us originally and created a whole new presentation with slides and music and meditation. It's going to just be an amazing dive deeper into how we can connect with our own mindfulness and our own balance in these times when it's pretty darn hard some days to do. So with that, Joel, please take it away. And I think he's going to lead us off with an opening meditation.
Thank you, Robin. So good to be in the circle with you again. Really celebrate all the journeys we've shared. And good morning, everyone. Another precious day. Yeah, what I'd like to invite as we're getting started here is a sequence of practices that are a really beautiful way to begin your day. So just pay attention to the sequence here, okay? And this is a practice that I'd encourage you, or I'd challenge you to explore doing every morning, beginning with the first moment of the day that you're awake, okay? Many people get up, they tumble through the day, and it's maybe 3 or 4 hours into the day that they have the first moment that they're awake, It's just been mindless habit running their life. So right now, as you're looking out through your eyes, just smile to yourself and activate that quality of knowing that you know, of being awake that you're awake. And then embody that by just reaching up and touching your heart and gently smiling. And as you breathe, brighten the light. Envision that you're brightening the light of that indwelling, mysterious, awake and loving awareness within you. And as you breathe, it's as though the light of that quality of being glows more brightly and shines out into the universe. And that light, you could envision that light kind of shining from the jewel of your heart is reflected in the deepest heart jeweled dimension of all beings everywhere. Activating within them the potential for them to awaken to their true nature and the indwelling, amazing, loving presence within them. Awake that you're awake and in touch with your heart. Now turn your mind towards gratitude. And for a few moments, just resting in the flow of the breath, be mindful of anyone or anything that comes to mind that you're grateful for. And as anyone or anything comes to mind that you're grateful for, really, as you breathe, draw them into the focus of your awareness, gather them into your heart, feel your gratitude for them, and then radiate your thanks to them, your blessings, your loving kindness to them. And then as someone else or some other aspect of your life comes to mind that you're grateful for, again, breathe them into your heart, into the focus of your awareness, feel that gratitude, and light them up with your blessing, with your gratitude, with your thanksgiving. So that at this phase, we're in the flow of gratitude and blessing. One by one, cluster by cluster, whoever, whatever comes to mind. Gratitude and blessing. Then the third step is really listen into your heart for what's your intention for this day or your prayer for this day. And be mindful how that comes to you as an image, as a phrase or a word. Whatever that intention is, just gather that into your heart. Again, let that be brightened by the flow of your breath. Really light up that aspiration, that prayer, that wish that you hold in your heart at a personal level, and then add a universal harmonic to that intention for the benefit of all. May I become more courageous today, not just for my own benefit, so that all beings have access to greater courage, all beings who share the larger body of life. May I come to deeper peace or deeper well-being, not just for myself, but in order to activate the potential within myself and all beings for greater peace, greater healing, greater wholeness. And then the fourth step is envision calling close to you any of your really beloved and most trustworthy mentors, teachers, sources of inspiration. And imagine yourself just bathing in the light of their presence in your life. And if you like, you could envision reaching out and actually holding the hands of some of these teachers. And as you breathe in to receive and to gather strength from anyone or anything that you gather inspiration from, to take it to heart and to radiate your gratitude back to them. And as you reach out to a mentor or a teacher, envision that you reach through them and they're reaching out to their teachers, who are reaching out to their teachers, who are reaching out to their teachers, and an endless cascade, so that as you breathe in, there's this sense of receiving and gathering inspiration, strength, and blessings from all of these lineages of spiritual ancestors, of teachers. They're accessible to you, and you breathe that in, take it to heart and receive it, and you radiate your love and your gratitude back to all of them. And as you gather this light and this strength and take it to heart, also extend and radiate that goodness, that light, that strength out to everyone else who you share your life with. And through them to everyone who's a part of their life, and through them to everyone who's a part of their life, in a boundless cascade. Wonderful. So for a moment, as we wrap up this phase of the meditation, I invite you just reach up, touch your heart, and with the sound of the bell, maybe just make the sound ah. And just rest in open awareness for a moment without doing or trying. And just be mindful what's alive within you now after this short sequence of contemplations. Be mindful what qualities of being are most alive and aglow within you. As we continue on, if you like, feel free to just, make a note in the chat, a word, an image, a phrase, what's alive within you in this moment coming out of the meditation. And let's carry whatever this is with us on now as we go into exploring some images and some more information together. Thank you. So Robin invited me to explore the theme of living in balance with you today in VUCA times. And for those of you who don't know what VUCA is, you will shortly. Would like to just explore these themes in the spirit of these are really challenging times, and they're inviting us to look out beyond the horizons of the familiar and to explore new territory, new dimensions, new possibilities. And in this short time that we have together today, would really like to just offer a selection, kind of like a mala or a rosary of some key ideas, key points for you that can help us find the stillness within the turbulence, help us find the clarity within the confusion, help us find a quality of good-heartedness and open-heartedness in the midst of a lot of the challenges that we find. I think one of the key points here is the sense of the more we listen, the more we will hear. And the more we hear, the more and more deeply we will understand. This time of the great pause, this time of kind of sheltering in grace that many of us are experiencing, is both a bundle of blessings and challenges. But I think for many of us, it's provided an opportunity for us to listen more deeply and to tune into the whispers that, if they're not paid attention to, can grow into screams. And I think, you know, as we look at what's happened since the murder of George Floyd, as we look at so much of what's unfolding in the United States right now in response to the virus, we're catching a glimpse of some of the screams that could have easily been addressed and attended to when they were whispers, but we weren't paying enough attention. And I think at a personal level, a lot of us have had a chance to listen more deeply into our hearts and find a deeper wisdom. There's a beautiful teaching, actually, it comes from the book of Psalms about living in balance. And one of the, I think it's Psalm 16:8 from David. There's a phrase that's used as a meditation in the Jewish tradition quite often that's called the Shaviti prayer, which basically translates as, when I bring myself into balance, I behold God before me always. As I bring myself into balance, the sacredness of the world becomes more apparent to me, more moments of the day. We were watching a movie that was just released on the Dalai Lama a couple of days ago, and he was talking about, somebody asked him how he deals with anger, you know, having lost his country to this brutal occupation by the Chinese, you know, dealing with Tibetan refugees all the time, living in exile. And he so beautifully said, you know, first I calm and quiet my mind. I bring myself into balance. And then I make decisions and speak and go into action. There's a beautiful quote from Thomas Merton, the great Father Thomas Merton, who is a Christian mystic, who was walking down the street in Louisville, Kentucky one night, and kind of the bar district there, kind of a wild part of town which he liked to visit. He was an interesting priest. But he had this epiphany, and there's actually a little shrine on the corner of the intersection where he had this epiphany. And Merton wrote, he said, then he came into a moment of balance. He says, and then it was as though I suddenly saw the secret beauty of the hearts of all the people on the streets around me, the depth of their heart, where neither sin nor confusion could reach the core of the reality of each person. the way that they are seen in the eyes of the divine. If only we could see ourselves, if they could see themselves the way they really are all the time, if we could see each other this way all the time, there would be no need for war. There would be no hatred or injustice. There would be no greed or cruelty. I suppose the biggest problem would be that we would just fall down and worship each other. A beautiful image. So this notion of living in balance, it doesn't require a lot of work. It's, in the words of one of our teachers, small glimpses many times throughout the day, to pause, to come back to presence, to wake up, to gently smile, to take a few mindful breaths, and then to proceed many, many times throughout the day. This is a poster actually that was up at the Family Medicine Department, University of Wisconsin, when they were running a mindfulness program there. So this is a pretty intense time, and the choices that we make in the weeks to come, the months to come, the years to come, in terms of social justice, in terms of how we're dealing with the environment and the virus, are super critical. And it's really clear from this beautiful quote from Einstein that the world we've made as a result of the level of our thinking we've done this far creates problems that we can't solve at the same level of thinking or the same level of consciousness that created them. We shall require a substantially new manner of thinking if humankind is to survive. And Joanna Macy, this beautiful quote from her. Joanna is one of our friends and teachers. She says, "Our sorrow is the other face of love, for we only mourn what we deeply care for. The sorrow of grief and rage we feel is a measure of our humanity and our evolutionary maturity. As our hearts break open, there is room for the world to heal." Some years ago, I think back in the 90s at the Army War College, this phrase VUCA was coined and to describe the modern battlefield. And over the years, this has become more and more widely referred to in realms of business and medicine and the economy, that we live in times of great volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And a friend of ours actually added a second A to this of absurdity. Sometimes as we look at what's going on in the world, how could this be? And it's likely that these trends of VUCA-ness are not going to subside, but only grow larger and larger, so that this is a fortunate moment for us to really learn how to move towards greater balance in our lives, how to learn practices and skills that help us do that. There was a study done last year looking at leaders that, with regards to their capacity to function at high levels in a highly VUCA environment. And what the study showed, it was a global assessment with, I think, 35,000 leaders. The study showed that less than 2/3 of global leaders rated themselves as highly confident or very confident in their ability to meet the 4 VUCA challenges. And soberingly, when HR professionals were asked to assess the VUCA preparedness of their leaders, 1/3 viewed their organizational leaders as being incapable of meeting the challenges of VUCA time. And a mere 18% ranked their leaders as being very capable or highly agile with regards to responding to VUCA situations. And the study showed that the VUCA preparedness of leaders is directly linked to their organization's effectiveness in the bottom line performance of those organizations, as the top 20% of organizations performing well financially were 3 times more likely to have VUCA capable leaders than the bottom 20%. So interestingly, the word VUCA also means to wake up in Zulu. And I think, you know, the circumstances of these times are inviting us all to really wake up, to see more clearly what's really going on in our governments, our lives, our communities, our own personal lives. But to wake up really requires courage. And I think, you know, for a lot of people, you know, it's like the small print on the mindfulness box or the meditation box says caution. You know, this really requires a tremendous amount of courage to stop misleading ourselves or denying, and to really look deeply at what's going on. It's much easier to just keep watching the reassuring lie. Václav Havel, the former president of the Czech Republic, in a historic address to the US Congress back in the 90s, I believe, spoke this beautiful quote where he reminded us that without a global revolution in the sphere of human consciousness, nothing will change for the better in our sphere as humans, being humans, and the catastrophes towards which this world is headed, be they ecological, social, or a general breakdown of civilization, will be unavoidable. The salvation of our human world lies nowhere else but in our human hearts, in the human power to reflect, in our human meekness and responsibility. In that spirit, moving back into how do we move more towards balance, this wonderful quote from the father of modern psychology, William James, reminds us that the key is to really make our nervous system and our mind our ally instead of our enemy. And Vimla Takar, who's one of our teachers, reminds us that in this era, to be a spiritual inquirer without balancing that with a social consciousness is a luxury we can ill afford, and to be a social activist without a scientific understanding of the inner working of our minds is the worst of follies. Neither approach in isolation will have any success. So one of the challenges, how do we manage our minds and our thinking so that we can really find some kind of balance? Try this for a moment. Just pause for a moment, look within, put your left hand on your left knee and your right hand on your right knee. Gently smile and come into a mindfulness of the breath, coming in and flowing out. Let one hand be for positive stories that you could call, this is a healing story. And the other hand for stories that don't need to happen, self-sabotaging stories. This is actually a technique that comes from a tribe in Africa that would teach children from an early age to distinguish between different kinds of thoughts. So as you're mindful of the flow of the breath, if a thought or an image comes to mind that is a healing story, say, this is a healing story, and tap with one hand. And if a worry or a concern comes to mind that maybe is a story that doesn't need to happen, notice that and tap with the other hand and maybe say, and this is a story that doesn't need to happen. And just rest in the flow of the breath, kind of tagging these thoughts as they come and go. Healing story, story that doesn't need to happen. Healing story, story that doesn't need to happen. One of our teachers, David Chetlahay Paladin, was a Navajo teacher, and he used to say, worrying is just praying backwards. Worrying is just praying backwards. So I think a huge piece of our inner work in these times is to really learn how to encourage maybe the more positive thoughts and just not feed the other thoughts that maybe drain our vitality and our energy. Let's explore another technique here for a moment for it to come into balance. Just again, be mindful of the flow of your breath as it comes in naturally and flows out naturally. Eyes can be opened or closed, just mindful of breathing in, mindful of breathing out. And then bring your awareness to an even subtler level now as you really appreciate the balance of breathing in and breathing out, this natural flow of living in balance, living in the natural flow of the breath. And bring your awareness to a subtler level now and tune into the pulse of your beating heart. You could touch your wrist or your neck or put a hand on your chest and just refine your inner listening to tune into the rhythm and the pulse of your heart, wherever you can feel that within the body. And as you do, then notice how the pulse of the heart and the rhythm of the breath interfuse together. Notice how the heart rate as you're breathing in, as it is at a different rate than the heartbeat when you're breathing out. And then to deepen this interior somatic awareness and experience, then go to a third level where you are mindful of all the places throughout your body where you can feel the ripple and the rhythm of the pulse rippling out through your flesh. And just feel all of the interior space of the body as just filled with the resonance, the energy, the vibration, the pulsation of the waves of the breath and the pulsation of the heart. Yeah. And then if your eyes are closed, let them gently open. And just let that integrate with an ah. So this is a practice you can do, frequently throughout the day. The breath is always here, 21,600 times a day. You breathe in, you breathe out, living in balance. The heart is always beating and always there waiting for you to come back to it, calling you to just listen in a deeper way into your body. It's a beautiful way just to push the clear button and come to balance. So we can be mindful of our thoughts and notice healing stories and stories that don't need to happen. We can be mindful of the breath and the heartbeat. Teachers on living in balance. Earlier in the opening meditation with gratitude, there was gratitude, being mindful of what we're grateful for, and then completing the circle of that gratitude by letting the heart reach out with blessings, with waves of thanksgiving. Again, the sense of receiving and radiating, the sense of a gift comes to us and we respond with gratitude. Our Native American, our First Nations teachers say if a blessing comes to us and you don't respond with gratitude, then you don't complete the circle, and that flow of blessings and goodness will be less likely to continue to flow. But if you turn on the water and the faucet and water flows out, your gratitude flows back to the infrastructure and the engineers and the mountains and the clouds, then in a sense you're completing that circle. As every moment of gratitude can be a moment to return to living in balance. There's another practice that I'd like to introduce in the spirit of living in balance. It's a very powerful practice for living in these times. And we caught the foundation for this in the opening meditation, where there was that sense of reaching out to teachers and sources of inspiration, breathing in and gathering strength, radiating our gratitude back to them. In a sense, breathing in light and breathing out light, extending that, gathering strength, radiating strength. This is a meditation called Tonglen that comes from the Tibetan tradition, and it's one of the absolutely most useful practices in these challenging times, where within us and in the world around us, there's so much tension, so much anxiety, stress, uncertainty. It's a really profound practice for learning to live in balance. And I'll give a brief introduction and can follow up with some links that give you more details. So as you're sitting here right now, just reach up and touch your heart. Gently smile. And with an just open an interior space of, like an inner space within you, as though your body's like a big balloon with no solid forms or structures at all within the interior dimension of your being. And the center of this inner spaciousness that's connected with the outer spaciousness around you, at the center of this, just sense your heart of hearts, like a portal or a jewel that's like the dimension of the heart of your heart, the purity of your heart. And then open the field of your mindfulness to just notice any place within you where there's any tension, any pain, any worry or concern. And envision that as you breathe, you can just gather any worry, any pain, any tension into your heart of hearts, into this portal of your true heart, where those energies just like enter a quantum dimension and are completely dissolved. And then the heart opens and overflows back to wherever the worry, concern, tension, or pain came from, with waves of light, comfort, and compassion. So you just breathe in any turbulence, let it dissolve into your true heart. You breathe out peace. Breathe in any inflammation or heat, let it dissolve into that dimension of the true heart, into that jewel or crystal at your heart, and you breathe out coolness. And as you get a sense for how this works within yourself, within the mandala and the sphere of your own personal experience, then if anyone else comes to mind, a loved one, a friend, a neighbor, who you have a concern about, who has some anxiety, some vulnerability, some suffering or pain, knowing that in the seamless wholeness that connects you with all things and all beings in the larger body of life, realize that as you breathe, you can breathe in the suffering, the pain, the confusion, the worry, the vulnerability of others in the larger body of life, and allow all that energy to dissolve into this pure and open dimension of your true heart, giving rise to an upwelling and an overflowing of the heart, reaching back with waves of comfort, waves of light, waves of compassion. And then the meditation can just expand and include anyone in the individual, any groups of beings who may come to mind, who may be in distress, just breathing that in, letting it dissolve into the dimension of your true heart, breathing out waves of comfort, waves of light, waves of compassion. And if it's helpful, you could envision just bringing your heart to merge with the heart of Jesus or Mary or the Dalai Lama or some great being whose heart is truly open to infinite compassion. Merging our heart with their heart, and in a sense, having them show you how this meditation might work. And doing this with the utmost and complete confidence that there's no vulnerability for yourself in this, that whatever you breathe in is completely dissolved and resolved, opening the dimension of your true heart to shine forth as a boundless wave of comfort, ease, and compassion. And then again, for a moment, just reaching up, touching your heart, gently smiling. And with the bell and with an ah, just let this meditation come to completion. And just rest in open awareness for a moment, being mindful of what's alive within you, having explored this practice for a few quiet and precious moments. Just with the sound ah, resting in open awareness. And appreciating that even throughout the day, if there's times when you become entangled in some worry, some doubt, some concern, that again, you could just reach up, touch your heart, and just with the gentle sound, ah, just untangle yourself from that worry, from that thought, and just come back into the clear, open dimension of the mind, the sky-like mind, within which all the clouds and the winds of thought and mental formations come and go. That as simple as just touching your heart, gently smiling, and with an ah, you can move into that dimension of mind that is, in a sense, free from thought, free from worry, free from concern, and just return to the sense of natural great peace within which all the thoughts, all the worries, all the concerns come and flow like clouds in the sky. But that's always accessible within ah. So to appreciate that all of these inner practices, which we've somehow or another had the good fortune to smuggle into the halls of power, from British Parliament to the World Government Summit to even the Special Forces troops, teaching practices like this for peak performance, for resilience, for personal mastery, for productivity, for humanity, for care, for kindness. That all of these practices are so native to our being. And to appreciate that the millions and millions of different methods and practices that are available can help us to really wake up to our true nature, our highest potentials, the full dimensions of our being. From a scientific perspective, these kinds of practices help quiet the part of the brain that likes to keep self-referencing, that's busy selfing, that's busy othering, that's telling the story of our separate self, yakety yakety yak, again and again and again. What Einstein called the optical delusion of consciousness that leads us to get lost in our story of a separate self. But with these kinds of practices that we're exploring here, it has an effect on the mind, an effect on the brain to quiet what's called the default mechanism in the brain, which opens us to a deeper sense of unity, of connectedness, of selflessness, of compassion, of relatedness with all things and all beings. A little bit more of the science here. Here's a group of two groups of subjects in an experiment on the practice of limitless compassion. This is a study that was published in the Proceedings for the National Academy of Science a number of years ago. The controls were a group of people who for 1 week practiced opening their heart to a light of boundless compassion extending out for all beings in every direction. And they practiced that meditation for a week. The meditators here were long-term meditators who had practiced for 15,000 hours, 30,000 hours, 45, 60,000 hours, virtuoso meditators who had really practiced for a long time. And this is the neural activity in their brains while they're practicing. And just raise your hand if you can notice a difference between these two. Yeah. What you see with the long-term meditators is that they are much more highly energized. The brain areas are much more connected. It's sort of like these guys are running gigabyte neural activity as compared to dial up with the controls. And to appreciate that even after a couple of hours of practice of these kinds of mental strategies, these kinds of meditations, that we're actually rewiring our brains. And this is how that works. Our life experiences give us certain beliefs, worldviews, and identities. Those beliefs then determine what we value and care about. Those values determine our choices, and those choices determine our lifestyle and our habits. And those drive what we pay attention to. Drive what we pay attention to, so that when we're paying attention to something, it activates the neural circuits in the brain that allow us to pay attention. And as those neural circuits are activated, those circuits become stronger. Those nerves connect with each other more. That actually changes the structure of the nervous system. And then that changes the set points and the filters of perception in our brains that then filter and condition our life experience. So to appreciate that, through these kinds of practices, we're not only changing our minds, but we're changing our brains. And to appreciate that every different kind of mental activity is rewiring the nervous system in a different way. I'd like to just speak briefly to how this translates into relationships, and then we'll go into a little stretch break and some questions. One of the ways that we can bring this into relationship is guided by this acronym PART, P-A-R-T. Maybe for a moment here, just click on gallery view so that you can see everybody in your chat. It may or may not work with the slides on, but you'll see at least a few people. And just for a moment, just let yourself become present and be in the presence of the other people that you're with here. As you're present, actually, I think maybe I will just stop screen share here and we'll just, yeah. So pick somebody and just become present with them. And as you are present with them, attune to them, just tune to the energy of their face, their facial expression, whatever you sense about this person. Present, attuned. Then see if you can come into a sense of resonance with this person. Really tuning into and feeling a resonance with them. What it's like to be them as another myself, what's alive within them. And then to feel that as we're present, attuned, and resonant, that just naturally gives rise to a greater sense of trust, a sense of relaxation, a greater sense of safety, being in their presence together. Presence, attunement, resonance, and trust. Just wave your hands a little bit. If you just can get a little feeling for that, how powerful that can be. And this can be a really beautiful practice to remember when you're on Zoom calls with people, and if a speaker is, filling the screen, somebody sharing a comment, just to kind of, tune into them in a deeper kind of level. One of the ways we can also bring this into practice is as we're looking at people on the screen or walking down the street or out for a walk and we see other people with their masks on or not, to regard these people as, just like me. Just like me. This person wants to be happy. This person wants to feel safe and at ease. This person is another myself, like the Mayan word for you, which translates as another myself, in Lakesh. It's a beautiful practice for us to bring to mind, to come into a greater sense of wholeness and resonance and balance. Yeah. Okay, moving towards wrapping this piece up here. I'd invite you to just read this quote by Einstein with me, and we'll move from here into a stretch and into some questions. So, a human being is a part of the whole called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. I hold this quote here as much of a prayer as it is a quote. We experience ourselves, our thoughts and feelings as something separate from the rest, kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few people nearest us. Our task in life is to free ourselves from this prison by widening the circle of our compassion to embrace all living beings and the whole of nature and all of its beauty. So going back to this sense of VUCA times, to appreciate, that there are some big waves coming our way. We're in the midst of them right now, and there are likely more sets to come. And that whatever we can do to develop our capacity, not only to ride these waves together, but to build relationships, to find communities where we're really able to surf these big waves together, that this actually could be an amazingly good time, like in the Hopi prophecy, where it says that, just in the midst of crazy and intense times, that where some people will feel so overwhelmed and want to hold to the shore and cling tight, if we let go and we push out into the river and we see who's there with us and rejoice, that we might really discover that, this could be a good time. So let's take some time to reflect together, to share any questions that may have arisen, to maybe give voice to something that was meaningful for you and what we've shared so far.
So Bill wants to know how do we get more of this?
Yeah, how to get more of this from us, from Michelle and I, is get on our daily inspirational email. And then it will just give you a hook for everything we're doing. These days, it's a lot online. We're actually doing 4 sessions a week on Zoom. So I'll just put in the chat here, connect with Joel, and just send me an email and we'll add you to our email address. We send out a daily inspiration. Oops, that just was going to Harry. Let's send that to everyone. There we go. So it's in the chat. Just send us an email and we'll add you to the list. These days we're doing 4 sessions a week. We also do some like weekend salons or discussions around different topics. In the non-COVID times, we do retreats. We'll be doing a retreat in September with the art monastery and the art monks. So Yeah, there's a wealth of material that we're constantly sharing. We've also got a really good YouTube channel, and we'll follow up from this and send you a link for that as well. Diana, it looked like you had a question.
Yeah, I am so grateful because I have read about the Tonglen meditation and tried it, and it always feels really foreign to me to be breathing in pain or discomfort or illness and so on. And I just love the way you presented it today. So this is really just a thank you. And if you anything more you want to say about that particular issue.
Yeah, thank you. You know, we once did a survey of a couple dozen of our teachers and said, look, if we have a chance to teach one meditation out of the millions of practices to people that will be the most beneficial, what is the one practice to teach? And about 95% of them said, teach Tonglen. And I think in a time like this where there is so much suffering, pain, uncertainty, anxiety, distress, concern, this is like a real warrior practice to be able to work with that. But one of the ways that you can really have the confidence to engage in a practice like this is also one of the main practices that the Dalai Lama teaches in his tradition. So that's an especially close connection. The foundation for this is back in the practice we did at the beginning of the receiving and radiating. Start with gratitude. Start with reaching out to everyone and everything that you gather strength and light from, that you draw courage and strength from, and just fill yourself with light, radiate that light, breathe in that goodness and strength, you know, send out your gratitude for that. And then on the foundation of that, when you're ready, then breathe in the concern, the fear, the pain, the suffering, the darkness, however you might experience that within you and within the larger body of life you share. Then filled with that strength from all of the sources that you take refuge in or connected with, you've got the backup you need for that. And you can embrace the pain and the suffering then of yourself, of your loved ones, of your friends, of family members in hospitals alone. You know, you can hold them in your heart and breathe in this way. And if you start to feel overwhelmed at any point, then go back to the gathering light and strength. Reach out and hold my hand. Imagine me reaching out, holding the Dalai Lama's hand. Imagine him reaching out, holding the hands of all of his teachers. Gather that strength to then go back into the Tonglen. As I mentioned, you could also envision, you know, you bring the Sacred Heart of Jesus into your heart, or Mary or Tara or whoever you hold as a you know, true-hearted, open-hearted being, and let them give you some guidance on how to do this. One of our Christian theologian friends wrote a beautiful paper that maybe when Jesus was on the cross, what the practice he was doing was Tonglen, breathing in the sins, the suffering, the fear, the vulnerability of all beings, purifying that in his Sacred Heart and dedicating his true-heartedness to the salvation and the comfort of beings for generations to come. So there's a universality to this. It's just like if any of you were a parent, you ever were holding a small suffering baby in your arms or comforting a loved one who's suffering. Just in the most natural of ways, we breathe in as though we want to just gather and dissolve all their suffering and give them all of our strength. It's so organic at that level. And in some of the links that I'll send out as a follow-up to anybody who sends us your email, there's some really beautiful articles and narratives on Tonglen that can give you a lot more detail. There's also in chapter 11 of Living in Balance book that we're raffling out. Chapter 11 really goes into detail with regards to bringing the receiving and radiating practice together with the Tonglen. So they really fit together. Thank you for asking that, Diana. That's a beautiful question.
I got a quick question, Joel.
Sure, Damien.
there's been so much, I guess, popularity surrounding the idea of meditation, and there's so many concepts that we want to pursue it and do it. What was the aha moment that clicked inside of you where meditation really started to play a valuable role in your life?
Wow. I think it was, to be quite honest, Damien, I think it was growing up in a household that had a lot of suffering and a lot of faith and spiritual practice. And for me, really having a deep aspiration to develop my capacity to be a force for good in the world and to find the strength, the inspiration, the wisdom, the courage, the love that I needed. That, it's just, I've spent over 55 years trying to fathom the plentitude of different practices and technology and contemplative science and traditional science to just, gather more capacity. So, and I also, grew up in a family where there was a lot of that. And I spent 3 years in high school studying and practicing meditation because I had Vietnam War was raging. I had a lot of very turned on teachers, and they're just saying, look, these are critical times. You absolutely must wake up and have your wits about you. And I think, what we're living in now, I think is also a really exciting time because it's really clear business as usual is completely insufficient. And it's either thrive or die, it's like, so I think, maybe it was optional to meditate in the 60s and 70s or the 50s, but now, if you don't have some kind of practice to clear your circuits, to activate your brilliance and shine bright in the world, you're in sorry shape right now. So, and we're practicing to be a source of inspiration for others.
Here's my question, Joel. I'm not sure I have it very articulate at all, but let me fumble. What's the balance between doing my own practices, maintaining, keeping my anxiety down, doing all those good things, and a way to maintain that is never look at the news. Never, it's a good practice to block all that out, but at the same time, I need to live in my world at the same time. So what is, and sometimes the world is upsetting, or rightly so. So there's some sort of balance of not rubbing my face in it, but at the same time, participating, even if I don't know a smooth way to participate.
Yeah, great question, Brooke. Because it's like when I was working in mental health, I used to run a stress clinic and a pain center. I used to say my job was to help crazy people not get crazy about being crazy, and anxious people not to get anxious about being anxious. And there's so many triggers in our world today, especially if you go online. So a couple of pieces of advice, okay? One is, don't be a news voyeur. You said the word participate, and I think that's really important. If you're going to go into the news, see if you can challenge yourself to any piece of news that you read, especially if there's suffering involved. Take it to heart and send some love back to the people that are suffering, okay? So that you become a participant. Do a little Tonglen, send a little bit of light where there's some darkness. Really, if nothing else, really feel how it touches you and rattles you within yourself, and just breathe and calm your own agitation around it so that you're a participant rather than a spectator. I think that's really important. One other practice, and I use this clinically a lot, it was a really powerful practice for many people, is set 15 minutes a day to do worrying meditation, okay? And when worries or anxieties intrude into your mind throughout the day, if they show up at any other time than when you have your appointment to do your worry meditation, which let's say is 4:30 every afternoon, just say to those worries, I'm terribly sorry. I'm busy living my life right now and you're early. I'll see you at 4:30.
Yes.
And then when the time comes, just kind of open your mind, open shop for all of these worries to come, and really wholeheartedly engage in them. You know, really look deeply into those worries, those concerns, those doubts, those fears, those vulnerabilities for 10, 15 minutes. And then when the time is up, say, I'm terribly sorry, but we've run out of time. I've got my life waiting for me to return to wholeheartedly. If you're still relevant, come back and we'll continue this conversation tomorrow. But if they try to intrude at other times, just draw a line on that. You know, this is a story that doesn't need to happen. Or this is a story I'm going to think about later, but I'm not going to give it my precious attention now. So it's like Thich Nhat Hanh saying we have to learn to smile to our sorrow because we're more than our sorrow. And smiling to our sorrow gives us a certain sense of sovereignty over those energies. You know, remember David Paladin's words, you know, worrying is just praying backwards. So spend 23 hours and 45 minutes a day praying forward. And then for that other 15 minutes, really go for it. And it's a great practice. Clinically, that was really a golden practice to do.
Hey, Joel, I wanted to cut in real quick. We're all kind of blown away about what you just shared with us. And what we like to do is kind of break off into some breakout groups. Are you interested in doing that now? Or you still got a few more things to show us?
Yeah, I was just clicking to do this. We'd like to do breakout groups, small groups, and maybe a little bit different than you've done if you participated in these sessions before. We'd like to use the 5 rivers in your breakout groups. These come from the Basque tradition. We learned these from Angeles Arian, who's one of our really precious teachers. I think Robin knew Angeles. And to consider, the Basque people, the Basque elders said, if you swim in the 4 rivers every day or the 5 rivers every day, you'll maintain your vitality and your strength. So in your small groups, we'll ask you to pause and to consider, where in the session today were you challenged? You might want to write these down or take a screenshot. Where were you challenged today? Where were you inspired? Where did you swim in the river of surprise? Where did you swim in the river of being deeply touched or moved? And Michelle and I have added the 5th river, which isn't part of the Basque tradition, but the river of gratitude, gratefulness. Where did you swim in the river of gratefulness or gratitude? So in your breakout sessions, what I'd suggest is, instead of doing 3 minutes each, just each person speak briefly to one of the rivers you swam in, any of the rivers. Just speak briefly to that, then go to the next person, and the next person. Once you've completed, then go back to the first person, speak to another river that you swam in, and just cycle through these as many times as you have time for, just each person speaking to a river and then going on to the next one. Yes, Lisa.
I just want to thank you for the worry room. I'm a hypnotherapist and I can get people calm in my office, but sometimes when they leave, they can't stay always calm. That worry room is brilliant.
Yeah. I actually learned that from one of my mentors when I was doing clinical work. And his name was Ed Warts. And it was such a treasure of a practice personally. And it's also something you can share with other people when they say, oh, you know, I'm just so caught in my thought loops or whatever. Yeah. Other reflections, Jules, you carry with you?
Go ahead and feel free.
I was going to say that one also, and so did Sheila in my breakout group. So the worry room. So just not to be silent on it. That sticks in mind at the moment.
Thank you, Brooke. Other treasures from this time?
For me, it was the Tonglen meditation, and the whole meditation, I guess, and the whole way you introduced it and got us into that meditation. I, would like to do that meditation on a daily basis. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, Tonglen is really regarded as a practice of the spiritual warriors. And it's also, to me, like the meditation to the great mother who just wants to gather and transform the suffering of all beings and just give love and comfort and strength. And a beautiful aspect of it is that every time you practice it, it will show you new moves, new ways to open your heart. Because of the dynamism of it, if you're mindful where the heart or mind is drawn with it, and you follow that, it will continue to teach you for the rest of your life in amazing ways. Other treasures from today.
There was a really cool comment that was just added to the chat, and I don't know if everybody can see it. I'd like to read it out loud if you guys don't mind. To recap for me, gratitude for this version of Tonglen, surprise in the worry room meditation, challenged by taking in the news as a participant, inspired by the balanced perspective based in the compassion and active engagement in the world. Thank you so much. And that is that's Sheila, the comment from Sheila. Thank you very much for commenting and participating, Sheila. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Sheila. Beautiful.
Yeah, to me, the Tonglen was also very powerful, like to get connected to what's happening in the world and the suffering in the world. But I think your comment about the motherhood, I'm the mother of two teenagers who are fearless, like we're just having so much energy despite everything happening, like marching or living in a fraternity with coronavirus. And they both look at me and saying, oh my God, you're so overprotective. And I'm like, okay, I can just use different tools to channel my this versus being like, did you do this? Did you do that? And they just fearless, like taking planes and of course being conscious of what's happening, but there's not a lot of fear in them, and I don't want to instill fear, but I want to protect them at the same time. So it's great, all this meditation to do that.
Yeah. And again, with the Tonglen fast, put on your own mask first, work with your own anxieties, fears and tensions, and then just let it naturally expand. You think of a son, a daughter, a loved one, a friend, just open the radius of your heart to encompass them and breathe with them as well. Just follow it, very natural. Thank you, Catherine. Other jewels or treasures from today?
I'd like to just say I'm always impressed by this, and I'm remembering again today that the universality and the deep respect you have and the way you weave in, universally all the religions, all the cultures, and the jewels of each that weave for us in whatever unique way we personally express. I always so much appreciate being reminded of that. There's just so much separateness now, I'm Catholic and you're this, and and to just kind of get reminded that it's all part of the same beautiful expression of our own natures. So I don't know, I think that was a jewel for me today to just have that reaffirmed.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Robin.
Hey, Joel, I'm going to take you with me, my friend. You are the jewel. I very much believe in this I am, we are process, and we are all one here together. And I am so grateful that you took this journey so seriously for so many years, because it's such an important process that we add to our lives, mindfulness, and the practice of meditation is such an incredible tool, and your dedication to it, it shines through your presentation and just your overall essence. And I will take this activity and this participation today with me, and I will remember you in my movements forward. So thank you so very much.
Bless you, Damien. And that sense, one of my hopes is that with these practices that you leave today with a deep sense that you are never alone. You know, that you know, you could reach out at any time and hold my hand or hold Michelle's hand, feel us reaching out to our teachers who reach out to their teachers who reach out to their teachers, that we, you know, we're breathing together with all things and all beings, that there are infinite, vast resources available to us if we can just relax and quiet down and open our hearts and minds and reach out to them. So yeah, thank you for the reminder on that, Damien.
Joel, we got a hand raised by Lisa. Lisa, would you like to chime in real quick? Take yourself off mute and
Yes, just very quickly. Joel, you've got pictures behind you. You've got a picture behind you and a statue.
Yeah.
Can I just ask very briefly what the two mean? Fast, quick, one sentence.
Wow. This green Tara behind me is kind of like the Tibetan Mother Mary, if you will. It's swift and responsive compassion. It said if you were going off a cliff in your car, you'd want to call on Tara. She's like the wind, always there. You know, it's like, Lord help me. Kind of the feminine embodiment of universal compassion. And this is just a beautiful one. That David Crosby, the singer, actually has the original of this one. It's just a gorgeous piece. And then that's a carving from Bali of, you know, just kind of a being on fire with the Holy Spirit, so to speak. And then a painting from some Indian friends. So our house is a bit of a rich mix of sacred art from many different traditions. Thanks for asking, Lisa.
Joel, we got two more hands raised real quick, so I'd like to get to both of them before our announcements. Sabrina, I think you were first, and then Brooke, right after that, you can go ahead and chime in.
Hi, my name is Sabrina. It's my first time at one of these meetings. I'm here as a guest. I just wanted to say that I feel extreme gratitude and I'm so grateful for all of the information that I've gotten today. And also, Joel, during the meditation process, I felt so relaxed that I felt like I wanted to sleep, and that's a total compliment. It was just so relaxing, and I do try to meditate every day, but I love the idea and the concept of Tonglen, and I plan to incorporate that in my life, and also breaking out into the smaller groups. I'm grateful to get to know others at a personal level and how they've shared, you know, their personal and intimate information with me. So I'm grateful for that, and thank you, and I hope to be back soon. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sabrina.
That's a perfect fit. I wanted to say welcome to the people here for the first time or coming back. It's great to see you, and I look forward to seeing you again. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Okay, real quick, I think we're going to cut over to Diana to give us some announcements on speakers, and then we'll cut back over to you, Joel, when she finishes up to give some closing comments and lead a meditation.
I'm feeling overwhelmed with gratitude. You know, people have been showing up the Inside Edge for years, and it just doesn't matter who the speaker is, because every time I'm surprised with the depth and that is the perfect message for that day. So here we have coming up, I'm just going to give you for this month. On July 8th, we have Jill Lublin. She's the author of 4 books, and she's going to be talking about the profit of kindness. Her subject is always leadership, but she talks about how instead of winning, that if we go for kindness, that we're going to build a much larger base, and we're going to be even more successful and profitable and so on. Based on the ability to do that. On July 15th, we have our host today, Damien Minna, who is going to talk about a map to a better way. He talks about radical acceptance, and Damien was actually injured on a family vacation back when he was a teenager and became a quadriplegic. So he's going to tell us and enlighten us about how he was able to rise above depression and have a really full, beautiful life. So that's going to be very exciting. And then the final speaker in July is Loretta Bruning. She's the author of a book called Habits of a Happy Brain, Retrain your brain to boost your serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphin levels. She is an amazing woman. She's had a huge amount of research go into all of these ways that we can feel better and have a much richer life. And we learned some of these techniques today, so it'll be a rewiring and so on. We're just very excited, and we hope everybody here is at the next meeting. Back to you, Damien.
Thank you very much, Diana. You are wonderful. Thank you for going over our announcements. I'd also like to thank wonderful Robin for setting this all up and getting everything in alignment. To the board that's here today, our wonderful tech masters, Mrs. Rebecca and Marhali. Joel, I'll give you some closing comments after you do your wrap up here, but it was just a pleasure having you, and it was such an honor to be able to host this experience. And I'm going to pass it over to you real quick, and you can give some closing comments and then turn this in with a meditation, and I will send everybody to your website after that. So on to you, my friend.
All right. Thank you, Damien, for your gracious hosting, and Robin for your love and friendship through the years, and for all of the people on your team for hosting this. It's just so important for us to gather with kindred souls and just inspire each other in these times. And my hope, one of my hopes and prayers is that we continue to find ways to nourish and stay connected, you know, even after this phase of our journey subsides. You know, really with the ideas and methods that I've shared today, even if you leave here with just one or two practices or ideas that brighten the light of your presence in the world, this was a good time together. And hopefully you've been left also with a thirst to learn more. You know, for me, I'm 67 years old right now, and I am as full on learning as I ever was. You know, it's just such a profound time. Patty, you really spoke to the gift of this time and how much opportunity there is to learn. So I think, you know, if you have any interest in the kinds of realms and themes and disciplines that I've been talking about today, and you want to learn more, this is a precious time to do that. And you can clearly see the profound value, the profoundly practical value of this kind of learning. So I'm happy to point you in the direction of more resources and opportunities. Michelle and I have been hosting a meditation on Monday and Friday morning, and Sunday morning, and on Tuesday evening. Assuming there'll be some follow-up with you, feel free to reach. If we're in touch, then you'll be getting our schedule, and you're welcome to join us for any of those opportunities. So in that spirit, listening into, is there anything else? Yeah, I think just from here moving into a closing meditation. At the beginning, I talked about starting your day in the right way, you know, to first moment that you're awake, really embody that, touch your heart, move to gratitude, clarify your intention or your prayer for the day, reach out and connect with the network of loving support to kind of receive and radiate and strengthen yourself, and then launch into the day, staying true to your intention. The practice that we'll do now at the end of this session is a really beautiful practice to do at the end of the day, and also at the end of a meeting or a session, anytime there's kind of a coming to completion. And you could call this the practice of dedication. It's, in a sense, to pause together and envision that you can just gather into yourself like waves of light all the waves of inspiration from this time together. And you can actually use your hands, if you like, to gather that, like waves of inspiration, light and strength from everything that's come forth within you and everything between us. Bring that into your heart, and then to dedicate that, to envision that you play that light forward in the continuum of your consciousness to light your way forevermore. And that we gather this goodness and this light into us, and we take it to heart, and we share some of this, pour some of this into each other's hearts. Looking at all of the faces on the screen right now, maybe going to gallery view for a moment, and just, you know, sending your love and your blessings, your thanks to each person who's been a part of this experience, a co-creator in this today. Just dedicating, pouring some of your light into their light, some of investing some of your wealth into their bank account, so to speak, that we carry each other's light with us. And also to gather this light and this strength into your heart and let it flow from your heart into the hearts of all beings who you share your heart with. To everyone who's a part of the mandala of your life, the networks that you're a part of. Just sharing this light, lighting them up, that they will receive this however it is that they most need at this time, to find their peace, their wholeness, their true heart, their goodness, their wisdom. So this is a beautiful practice to do at the end of a session like this, or at the end of a day, to gather the goodness, take it to heart, let it flow from your heart into the hearts of all beings, trusting that each being will receive this gift however they most need at this time. And I think from there, Marhali, we could just move into some music, really light each other up and share and radiate this goodness out into the world, and to really celebrate ourselves having shown up for this and each other for having participated. Maybe just letting your gaze rest on each person here, just pouring some of your light into them, feeling each of us holding you in our hearts, letting this flow from our hearts out to everyone who shares our heart, who's part of our life with us.
But still I'm not afraid. I remember the sound of the river. Remember the sound of the river. I remember the sound of the river. Remember. Disillusionment runs deep, and oh, how it pulls so strong. But all I need for my protection is just faith to ride upon. For how the cycles move and turn, all the lessons that we learn on letting go. My foundation where the river meets my soul. 'Cause I may wander far away.
Thank you to our speaker today. Joel, we really appreciate you. It's very rare that you participate in something in such a short period of time and can gain such a large amount of value. Technique, meditation, and mindfulness are two things that we need more now than ever. So we really thank you very much for being on today. For all of you that are left I'd like to leave with one word that Joel filled my heart with. It's gratitude. So if everybody here could just chime in into the chat, just one word to thank Joel, to let him know what your gratitude is, what's on your heart. We did that in the beginning. Let's finish with it too. Give us one word to tell Joel how your gratitude can be shared with him.
Thank you all. It's really been an honor to share this time and this exploration together. May we have the good fortune to continue to meet along the way. And may we all go forth and light up the world today and forevermore with whatever goodness we carry with us from this time together. Thank you all.
Some of the words that everybody shared was radiance, transmutation, inspiration, huge value. Sheila said love, Sabrina, valuable, Brooke, happiness. You know what, one more time, we're gonna put the information in the chat so that everybody can get a hold of Joel. We're gonna also send everybody an email that was a part of this meeting today so that you will have a recording and all of the contact information one more time. Joel, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. And we at the Inside Edge really valued this opportunity to be able to spend time with you today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. And if there's anything else that you'd like to say to our wonderful people, please share it. And if not, thank you very much.
Yeah, profound gratitude back to all of you. Yeah, let your light shine bright in the world and share it with everyone you meet along the way.
And take ourselves off mute and say goodbye.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks,
See you
everybody.
later. Thank you
Pleasure
very
to
much,
see
Joel.
everybody.
Bye.